Okay, welcome back. We're looking at reviewing solving systems. So we're going to look at it by graphing and by matrices and deciding which one is which and which one is good for us. So if we look at the first one, we have both of our equations in slope-intercept form. So if they're both in slope-intercept form, we're going to go with graphing because they're already solved for y, they're both in slope-intercept form, so that's going to be our easiest way. So we're going to run back through how to find those steps, which the first thing first is getting it into our calculator. So since they're both slope-intercept form, they're both y equals, so I'm going to use that y equals button. So we're going to put that in, negative x plus 2, and also have alpha y equals to get to my fraction. We'll have 1/3 x minus 2. Once I have both of those in, I want to check my graph to make sure I can see that it's graphed on there. I can see that intersection, which means my calculator can find it. If I can't, then I have to zoom in, zoom out to be able to see it. After that, we're going to go to calculate. So I'm going to go second trace to get to that calculate menu. I want where they intersect, so I'm going to number 5, 5, and then enter 3 times. Enter, enter, enter. And there's my solution. I'm already done. My solution is 3, 1. Negative 1. Now, I do want to make sure that I graph this, and I'm going to try to make sure my graph is pretty exact, but not 100%. So I'm going to look at 1, getting that solution on there. So I'm going to go about 3, negative 1, and get that on there. I'm just going to go ahead and label that point. 3, negative 1. And then I also want to go ahead, and my other way of making sure that these are good is to use my slope-intercept form. So the first one has a plus 2. So over here I'm going to go plus 2. And then I'm going to use that to make a nice pretty straight line. Which I can label y1. And then I have my second y-intercept, which is 0, negative 2. So I can come back over here and put one at negative 2 and make a nice straight line through that and label that one y2, which then gives me all 3. Okay, if I look at number 2, I want to know the best way to do it and then work through it. So this one, I've got the first one in standard form, which is that ax plus by equals c, which gives itself best to matrices. But then my second one is in slope-intercept form, which is the y equals mx plus b, which gives it best to graphing. So you can make it and do it either way. So with this one, I could do either because both have solving to do. So it doesn't matter. So this one, either you can graph them both and get the solution, or you can do matrices and do both and get the solution. So I'm going to do it both ways so you can see it. So my first way I'm going to do it is changing this top equation into slope-intercept form and getting that one to graphing. So I'm going to rewrite it, 4x plus y equals 12. So with me going about graphing my first way, I need both of them in that slope-intercept form. So then I'm going to take and move and get y by itself. So I'm going to move that 4x, so subtract 4x. Anytime you move, you're adding or subtracting. And I get y equals negative 4x plus 12, which now means I have them both in y equals, and I can put them into my graph. So I go back to y equals over here, and the first one is now negative 4x plus 12, and the second one is now negative 4x plus 5. Ooh, I'm starting to notice something. What are you noticing? Sorry about that bell. Okay, so notice they are parallel. So both of these equations, I have one of them that's the negative 4x. The other one is y equals negative 4x plus 5, which means they are parallel. And do parallel lines ever intersect? No, which means this guy is no solution. So even if I went to go about and said second, trace, 5, enter, 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 it gives me an error. So if you get that error, it means that they most likely don't have an intersection, or you need to zoom out to be able to see it. But since I can see those two slopes the same, I know it's not going to work. Okay, now I want to show you what's going to happen if you did this with matrices as well. So instead of me changing this through to slope-intercept form, we're going to change that second equation into standard form. So to change it in standard form, I need to move that x over to the opposite side. So when I do that, I would add 4x to both sides, and I'd get 4x plus y equals 5. So that gives me one standard form, two standard form, to then be able to set up my matrix. So we're going to look at making sure we still do the ref in there, but after that, I'm setting up to where my coefficients for x are both 4, my coefficients for y are both 1, and then my number, the first one is 12, the second one is 5. So when we go to put that in the calculator, we do second matrix, that y to the negative 1 power, math, all the way to b to get the ref, get that in, alpha zoom, make sure it's 2 by 3, so I select both of those, okay, and then I put in my numbers, 4, right, 1, right, 12, right, 4, right, 1, right, 5, right, and then now enter it in, and my solution matrix is 1.25, 0, but the real thing on the bottom I'm looking for is that 001. And that 001 tells me that it's no solution. So either you look to see that they're parallel lines, or that you have that 001, but both of those things tell you it's no solution. And if we graphed, we got to make sure we sketch these, which I didn't do. I've got one of them at 12, one of this 4, but they're basically both parallel lines that are going down from there. Alright, on the next one. Here we've got a standard form for our first one, and then I've got a table for my second one. So my table, when I go to find the equation for that, what form is it going to spit it out in? It's going to spit it out in slope-intercept form. So it's kind of like before. This one, you can do either for it. So we're going to do it both ways, but again, you can choose whichever way you want. So if I'm going to go for graphing, so this one's either because you have standard and slope-intercept. Okay, so my first way I'm going to go about it, I'm going to go about with graphing. So that means I've got to take and get y by itself with this first one. So I'd have to subtract 2x on both sides, which would get me to y equals negative 2x plus 0. And then I want to do the same, but how do I go from a table to getting my equation? We're going to use stat. So we're going to use stat edit to get that. So I go to stat on my calculator, click enter, and we're going to put in exactly what we've got. So -3, -1, and then 2, 4, and then 6, 2, -4, -8, stat, arrow to calc, 4, enter all the way down, and this one we get that it's also y equals -2x plus 0. So I've got alarm bells going off again in my head. This time we've got the same slope, but I've also got the same y-intercept. So if you've got the same slope m and y-intercept b, that tells you that it's infinitely many solutions. So I'm done if I'm graphing, because they're going to take, and when I graph these two, it's the same exact line. So it's going to both be right on top of each other. If I go to do that second equation, it's going to do it right on top of the other one. So that means that everywhere we see is all solutions. Okay, so that's if we do graphing. So we're going to show that it's the same thing if I'm going about doing it with matrices as well. So I've already got the first one in standard form. So I know my first equation is already 2x plus y equals 0. But then I want to get the second one into standard form, which means I've got to move that x over. So I would do plus 2x on both sides, which would get me 2x plus y equals 0. Oh man, same exact thing. So when I go to put in my matrix, I would have for my x's 2 and 2, for my y's 1 and 1, for my numbers 0, 0, and I want to take and put that into the calculator. So I go second, matrix, math, B, alpha, zoom, 2 rows, 3 columns, enter, 2, 1, 0, 2, 1, 0, enter. And this one, just like the same, I'm looking to see what type it is. So this one gave me 1.50, but this time I have 0, 0, 0. So with this one, since I've got that 0, 0, 0, it's all the numbers, so it's all the solutions. So again, I get that infinitely many solutions. So with infinitely many solutions, you're looking to either see the 0, 0, 0 on the bottom, or you're looking for the same slope and y-intercept, and that'll give you infinitely many solutions. Okay, last one. Here for this one. If I've got two equations in standard form, what's my easy way to do it? Matrices. So I want to use the matrices, the matrix, because that's going to help me since they're both in standard form. So since they're both in standard form, that's why I'm going to go for that one. So notice I do my x's straight into the matrix, the y's not forgetting that negative that's sitting out front, and then the -9 gets put in as well, and I'm going to put that in my matrix. So I have second matrix, math, B to get our ref, alpha, zoom, okay, and we put our stuff. 3, 2, -9, 5, -3, and 4, and then there's my solution. I got that 1001, which tells me about my solution as -1, -3. And that's it.